Valmiki had already understood. He had to go through the process of purification, tapasya, sadhana. And therefore, what did Narad Muni do to Valmiki? He just gave him the name. He gave him the Naam. Such a simple name he gave. Naam. What is it? Ram. Just Ram, 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 Ram. And how long Valmiki ji stood there and developed this powerful experience, realization of chanting the names of Ram. Narad Muni came back to Valmiki Maharshi. That Valmika means being covered by the ant hill. The entire body of Valmiki was covered with the ant hill, and the Ram Naam was continually recited by him. There were no flesh on his body, no skin. It was only sustaining because of the prana. When he came, then Valmiki Maharshi asked this question to the great Narad Muni about the greatest person existing in his time, his contemporary. And the entire Ramayana, the very essential part of the Ramayana, Narad Muni recited to Valmiki Maharshi in small summary, in few shlokas. What is that? It is explained that is nothing but the purport to the Ram Naam. He had given him the Ram Naam, now he was giving a commentary to the Ram Naam. And that is what is a Valmiki Ramayana. Now, why Valmiki Ramayana matters the most? Certainly, there are literally hundreds of versions of Ramayana. You can find Ramayana in the Mahabharata also. You'll find Ramayana in the Bhagavatam also. You'll find Ramayana in Vishnu Puran also. Then in Kali Yuga also many authors wrote many commentaries and also narratives of Ramayana. But what is so special of Valmiki Maharshi? The speciality of Valmiki Maharshi, when we study that there are different kinds of writers of Ramayana. One is driven by tarka. You call it as logic. And logic is not necessarily driven by good intentions. One may have a great brain to analyze things, but if samskaras are not proper, then the conclusion will also be wrong. It is great analysis. It may make sense, but it will not transform the heart. And for those people who experience the beauty of Ramayana, in fact, that creates a volcanic eruption. It is not pleasing. So, tarka does not transform, and there is no end to tarka. Like, depending upon their psychological upbringing, depending upon their belief system, right? There is one Ramayana which says that forcing non-violence on Ramayana, this author has said that Ram did not kill Ravan because it is against the concept of non-violence. The killer of Ravan was Lakshmana because he was angry. So they're trying to distinguish between Dharma Yuddha. They're not able to understand the concept of Dharma Yuddha. Justice for Dharma. For them, every violence is not judicious. Therefore, they want to save Ram from committing violence. In that same Ramayana, there is also explanation that how Sita Maya Rather than entering into the mother Bhumi, she became a Jain monk. Hmm? And if you study the great Raghuvamsha by Kalidas, the Kalidas's Raghuvamsha, of course, glorifies Lord Ramachandra, glorifies Raghukul. It derives lot of information from Valmiki Maharshi, but not necessarily gives the same conclusion of Valmiki Maharshi. Nothing to say bad about Kalidas's Raghuvamsha, beautifully described, derives inspiration. Then there are people from the Buddhist cult where there are some people who claim that the Brahmana stole the Ramayana from the Buddhist people. ऐसे कितने, how many versions are there? Driven by tarka, driven by many other agendas, they drift away from Valmiki's Ramayana. Right, tarka driven. And then there are Ramayana which are extremely pleasing. They are driven by the mellows of Ramayana, the rasas. When the rasikas recite Ramayana, what does it do? It entertains one. It makes one absorbed. It makes one feel gratified. It is good. But sometime in doing so, what does it do? It may compromise with the original Siddhanta. Recently in Mumbai, there was a show, Hamare Ram. They bring this without any bad agenda. They bring the story of Ravan meeting, being a priest before the battle begins. He comes there, he brings Sita Devi also because she has to be part of the yajna. Lord Ram has to perform yajna. That story, we don't know where they took it from. No bad intention. It has a flavor, but it doesn't follow the concept of yogic darshan, the darshan of Valmiki Maharshi. And there are stories of Valmiki Maharshi, the stories where Lord Ram, after shooting Ravan, sends Lakshman to speak knowledge of life. But if you read Valmiki's Ramayana, if you read Tulsidas's Ramayana, in either of these Ramayana, there is no such instances mentioned where Ravan is giving knowledge to Lakshman. Because that one arrow, can you imagine when Lord Ram shoots an arrow, it has the power to instantly kill. It is not like Bhishma Dev. Maybe that person who wrote conceived when Krishna sent Yudhishthira Maharaj to hear the entire knowledge of different dharmas, the Bhagavad Dharma, the Stri Dharma, the Raja Dharma, right? All different kinds of dharma Yudhishthira Maharaj heard from Bhishma Dev, who was lying on the battlefield for more than 58 days. He was Ichha Marani. The arrows did not kill him, the arrows simply stopped him from fighting, but did not kill him. Right? So, therefore, this story is also not there. Sweetness is there, but doesn't fit into the scheme of Valmiki Maharshi. Why? Because when Valmiki Maharshi speaks Ramayana, where does he speak from? The Valmiki Maharshi students themselves, they write, the Valmiki is speaking because he was performing tapasya for thousands of years. Right? Tapasya Vidya, he's performing tapasya and he meets another teacher who is also tapasvi. Valmiki Maharshi is the tapasvi, Narad Muni is the tapasvi. When these two great personalities, they have the yogic vision. through the yogic vision, they are conceiving rather the entire story of Lord Ram is manifesting right in the presence of Valmiki Maharshi. How does it manifest? It exactly manifests just like Amla. The Ramayana explains, the Valmiki's Ramayana explains, it exactly manifests like when you have an amla in your palm. You have no confusion about its size. You can see it, you can feel it, and you can actually, when you put that in your mouth, you can experience the taste of amla. That was the clarity Valmiki Maharshi had. And then eventually he got the benediction from Brahmaji, the creator of the universe. What is that? He said, whatever you know, whatever you do not know, rahasyam cha prakatam cha, whatever is known and unknown, everything will manifest to you to narrate this Adi Kavya, the original history of Ramayana. Right? And if you study in the Vishnu Purana, if you study the Bhagavatam, Shukdev Goswami narrated the Ramayana in Sankshep. And he said, if somebody wants to read in extension, it is already quoted by Valmiki Maharshi. It is also explained the great Yadavas in Dwarka regularly used to perform dramas based upon Valmiki's compilation. Now, the great writer Tulsidas, right? Now, Tulsidas's Ramayana for large number of North Indians is the Ramayana. They know only one Ramayana, that is Ramcharitmanas. Of course, they do not undermine or minimize the position of Valmiki Maharshi, but they chose to listen to Valmiki's Ramayana, Ramcharitmanas. And in that Ramcharitmanas, the great Tulsidas certainly gives all the credit to Valmiki Maharshi, calling him as Valmiki Brahma Saman. Right? He is almost like the representation of the Supreme. And therefore, Brahmaji had benedicted Valmiki Maharshi that your Ramayana will be Adharam for every other Kavi. They will take your Uchchista, whatever is left over, and compile their own compilation, having inspired by you. Some were inspired by Valmiki Maharshi, some stole the characters of Valmiki Maharshi, made something else. But Valmiki's Ramayana has Tarka, but it is not centered around Tarka. Valmiki's Ramayana has Rasa, but it is not only centered around Rasa. Valmiki's Ramayana is founded on the principle of yogic vision, Atmadarshan, Guru's blessing, Brahmaji's order, plus the realization of his own self. Imagine, therefore, Adi Kavi is an Adi Kavi, and the style of his compilation. How does he compile? The compilation of Valmiki's Ramayana and Mahabharat, these two great literatures, how do they compile? Where do they bring their ideas? They bring their ideas based upon the concept of how the creation functions. How does creation function? How does world function? Right? When you study how the world functions, one may be confused. So what does Valmiki Maharshi do? By seeing the laws of nature, by studying the laws of nature and concentrating those laws of nature and being inspired by Narad Muni, ordered by Brahmaji, there is a personality called Lord Ram, and all other personalities around him, he beautifully presents this itihas, the original kavya. It is kavya plus itihas. Therefore, it is relevant forever. Brahmaji also gave the benediction, as long as the rivers, the mountains, as long as the creation is there, Valmiki's Ramayana will exist. Because it is as good as the creation itself. And therefore, one of the major difference in regards to Valmiki's Ramayana and the famous Tulsi's Ramayana, it is very important to understand. Both had an important role to play. Both desired to glorify Lord Ram. Both wanted to create a revolution in such a way people are transformed. The foundational idea of Valmiki's Ramayana is based upon a very important principle. What is that important principle? That important principle is, we will discuss that when we deal with Avatara Tattva. That important principle of Valmiki's Ramayana is, he focuses on Ram being a human being, Manushya. And our Tulsidas ji focuses on Ram being Parama Purusha. Right? When he focuses on he being Parama Purusha, what does it do? It gives rise to one major difference. Tulsidas' Ramayana is focusing on Daiva. And one great historian, Jadunath Sarkar, explains, it's very important to understand, during those time in North India especially, there was invasion. Imagine when you are repeatedly beaten again and again. This part elaborately we will discuss on the last day. Lord Ram's Ramayana, political, social, or spiritual. But just to give you a background, how important it is, the context to understand, when Tulsidas was compiling, the entire north was beaten by the invasion of the militia forces, the Islamic invasion. And because of that, what does it do? At times, it gives rise to hopelessness in your efforts. The human endeavor loses its credibility because every endeavor sounds to be very less and it is not sufficient. And to symbolize this, to actually make it very clear to the followers of Sanatan Dharma, the Mughal Badshah Jahangir in Prayag, right, the very land of Triveni Sangam, there was a large Ashwata Vriksha. And he uprooted that Ashwata Vriksha. Still, he could not take completely away. Some part of the Ashwata Vriksha remained. And on that top of that, whatever remaining, he placed molten lead so that it should not again come back. Jadunath Sarkar explains, even though he poured lead over that tree, he could not completely cover that. Very small part of that log did not get covered with the lead, small part. And from that small part, the small leaves started growing again. And then he gives the credit for the battles done by the Marathas headed by Shivaji Maharaj. Right? And this is, he talks about, because before that, there was so much of loss of confidence in one's own endeavor, they needed to hear something which will keep them alive. Because without hope, a human being cannot exist. When you have a clarity what is going to happen in your life, so clear, and if the things are not hopeful, the body cannot handle, or the Atma cannot handle this body, it just leaves. The man or a woman dies, the civilization dies, the community dies, the society dies. They need somebody to give them that great inspiration, right? And therefore, Tulsidas ji wrote this Ramayana, Ramcharit Manas. He gave confidence in the heart of the people. Where did he focus? He focused on the Paratattva of Lord Ram, the greatness of Lord Ram, who can help you to overcome all kinds of obstacles, and he will fight for you. You just remember him. That was the message Tulsidas ji gave, the great Tulsidas. It revolutionized in North India. In every house, the Ramayana, which was spoken in Awadhi Bhasha, everybody could read it, everybody could follow it, everybody got that confidence. Ram aayenge, kuch to karenge. And because of that hope, imagine in that very Prayag, where even one tree could not grow, Ashwata Vriksha, because it is a worshipable tree for the followers of Sanatan Dharma, even that was uprooted. In due course of time, millions of people came there, not necessarily to wash off their sins, not necessarily to just follow the blind ritual of taking bath, but rather they were willing to show that I want to follow this culture. I have the Shraddha in the process of respecting my river. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, when Shukadeva Goswami speaks about the land of Bharat, he talks about how do you know what is land of Bharat? He gives two examples. One example, he gives the examples of the mountains. When you read the description of the mountains, whether it is Vindhyachal, whether it is Sahyadri, whether it is Govardhan, whether it is Himalayas, right? All these mountains, whether it is Rishabha mountain, he said wherever these mountains are there, that tract of land is called as Bharat. This is in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam. And the second example, our Shukadeva Goswami explains, he talks about different rivers, whether it is Ganga, Yamuna, Narmada, Payaswini, Tamraparani, Krishna, Kaveri, you name it, all those rivers. And he says, those who are part of this tract of land, they sometime come to this holy Pavitra Tirtha to bathe. If they cannot bathe, they simply remember the names of this river. And even if they are not able to remember, simply contemplating, not even chanting the names of the river, simply by remembering the name of this river, they get the benefit of bathing in that river. Like if you go to Kashi Vishwanath, there is that Jnana Vyapi, right? That Kupa, that well. In one of the Puranas, it is explained, if you cannot get to go, if you have the map of Kashi, and wherever that map shows the Jnanavapi, if you simply touch that, you will get the benefit of basically taking bath, and you become very good student to explore the knowledge. I remember in some parts of the villages in Gujarat, there are so many people still illiterate. They cannot read, they cannot recite, they cannot have the resources to hear, whether it is YouTube or iPod, whatever that is. So there is one kathakar, she's a kathakar. She gives the Hanuman Chalisa. And what does she tell them? She says, you go, just take your finger, 2 to 3 fingers, and just go around, close your eyes and just touch the Hanuman Chalisa, one line after another line, one line after another line. By doing that, you will get a lot of benefit. That is called as Shraddha. Right? One may say, what is the concept here? ऐसा होता है क्या? Is it possible? But by doing that, by submissively doing it, they are experiencing the benefit. And imagine when you are enlightened, when you have the knowledge, when you have the sadhana, right? Just like Valmiki Maharshi had that sadhana, then how much transformation one can experience. So Tulsidas' revolutionary idea of presenting Ramcharitmanas in such a way, focusing more on what Lord Ram can do for you. What does it do? It gives the hope and confidence that someday he will do something for us. That is required. But our Valmiki Maharshi differs from this idea a little bit. And why does he differ from his idea? He differs from this idea because this idea, in a long run, it is not sustainable. Daivavada without Purushartha has the power to make one wait forever. So therefore, Valmiki Maharshi's Ramayana, the beauty of Valmiki Maharshi's Ramayana is based upon the universal law. That universal law, what does it teaches? That universal law teaches Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshu Ma Manusmara Yuddhacha. There has to be the combination of one's efforts and the kindness of God. Without these two combination, what will happen? Without these two combination, we will keep depending upon, rather than being the servant of God, we become burden to God. Therefore, Valmiki's Ramayana is a Purusha Pradhan. It is a Paurusha Pradhan. It is the endeavor Pradhan. And therefore, Valmiki Maharshi takes great care in presenting the human side of Lord Ram more. That does not make Lord Ram human. He is still the supreme Bhagwan. That is very clear. But the emphasis is where? The emphasis is basically is on the principle of human endeavor. And because of that human endeavor, what does it do? It tells one, if you relentlessly try, if you relentlessly work with the grace of God, like Shivaji Maharaj is one of the teacher, Ramdas Swami, he said Samartha Ram. Samartha Ramdas. Samartha Ramdas, what does it mean? Samartha Ramdas means one who is basically is capable of putting his effort again and again. And by putting that effort, what does it do? It gives rise to, desire that I want to be successful in this regard. And then he invokes the grace of God also. Yesterday we had some DT welcoming in IIT with Gaur Hari Prabhu's house. And we were discussing, if you read in the Mahabharata, then we will understand what we are talking about. When Arjuna had taken a vow of killing Jayadratha before sunset, and he said, if I don't kill Jayadratha before the sunset, I will enter into Agni. Agni Snan Karunga. The word also so beautiful, Agni Snan. Agni Snan means what? It will be burned to ashes. And Krishna, he asked our Arjun, he said, my dear Arjun, how could you take such a vow? Because if you take such a vow, you should know there are Maharathis. Bhishma may not be there, But Dronacharya is there, Kripacharya is there, Karna is there, Ashwathama is there, Duryodhan is there, Dushasan is there, Shalya is there. All these great Athirathis are there, Maharathis are there, different kind of Rathis are there. You will not be able to reach till the evening and kill Jayadratha. They will see that you will not be able to do it. And Arjuna nonchalantly answered, Krishna, I work, but I don't worry. It's very significant that endeavor always lies with the living entity, and worrying becomes the responsibility, not responsibility, that is the reciprocation of our Krishna, Lord Ramachandra. And therefore, that night Arjuna went to sleep, but Krishna was rolling back and forth on the bed. How to save Arjuna? What to do? How to make something, to avoid this disasters which is befalling upon Arjuna? And early morning, before even the sun was about to rise, Krishna was rolling, was not able to sleep. He decided that I will finish up the war if Arjuna cannot kill. That is Valmiki Maharshi's content. That is the content of Vyasadeva also. Again, the story of building of the bridge. In the Valmiki's Ramayana, the bridge is never called as Ram Setu. The story of Ram inspiring Nal and Nil, they were the original sons of Vishwakarma. Right? They are the one, and it is described how they build the bridge. The entire building of the bridge, it is all based upon cooperation, human endeavor. Of course, inspired by Lord Ramachandra, and they were inspired to build it for Lord Ram so they can go across and fight the war. The story of writing Ram Nam on the brick or a stone and just throwing in the water emphasizes more on Daivavad. But Valmiki Maharshi's emphasis is more on human endeavor. But human endeavor not bereft of the mercy of God, because he was there around with them. Right? So when we see these differences, then we realize that how Valmiki Maharshi is extremely sensitive in regards to the laws of nature. Another interesting episode, when Lord Ramachandra has been asked by Dashrath Maharaj to be the king, prince regent. He was about to coronate him. And very interestingly, when you go back, when Lord Ram was about to be born, when he performed the Ashwamedha Yagya, then Putra Kameshti Yagya, in this both the Yagya, especially the Ashwamedha Yagya, Dashrath Maharaj consciously invites everyone, including Kaikai's father, Janak Maharaj, people from different kingdom. Everybody is invited for this function of Ashwamedha Yagya. But that same Dashrath Maharaj, when he was about to perform the coronation of Lord Ram, did not invite Janak Maharaj, neither Bharat, and Bharat's uncle also. He says better that Bharat is not here, because he was hiding something. And then what happened was, as the ill luck, Kaikai, being inspired by Manthara, she asked for 14 years vanvas for Lord Ram. Very painful. She said Ram has to go to vanvas for 14 years. Instead of Ram, my son has to be coronated. Dashrath Maharaj was not able to accept this proposal. It was very painful for him. Right? He requested Sri Ramachandra to imprison his own father. He did not defy the benediction, wholesomely. He would say sometime, but he was forced to follow. And therefore, he told Ram, he said, "You please imprison me, put me in the jail, and be coronated yourself." In one sense, Lord Ram was indicating what Aurangzeb will do to his father Shah Jahan. Kept him in the imprisonment for 8 years. Imagine, Ram instantly denied, he could not even think what his father is saying. But still, Dashrath Maharaj could not tell that I do not agree with what Kaikai is saying completely. Because Kaikai used Lord Ram to force Dashrath Maharaj to fulfill the promises which he had made. He was forced by his own words. And Ram was ready to go. In that story, one of the most interesting part, Valmiki Maharshi brings out such a profound siddhanta for human existence. If we understand this part, we can empower ourselves to such an extent, overcome so much of pain, misery, and difficulties and challenges. And what is that part of the story? When Lakshman got to know, Lakshman was livid. He was angry like fiery Yamaraj. When he got to know that Kaikai has planned this and Dashrath Maharaj has agreed, there was an outburst by Lakshman. Lakshman said, "My dear Ram, how in the world our father can do it?" That shows that he has been being a handpicked husband. He speaks about his father. He has been controlled by the lustful attraction towards his wife Kaikai, and he said, "I will not allow this to happen. I do not believe in Daiva. I believe in Purushartha. मैं पुरुषार्थ पे मैं ध्यान देता हूं. My bhujas, my hands are not meant for decoration alone. They are meant to use this power to destroy those who are opposing your coronation. I will not allow this to happen." Now, what is the response of Sri Ramachandra? Very profound, very beautiful. He told Lakshman very peacefully, "My dear Lakshman, have you ever seen our father misbehave with us? He has always been kind to us. He has always been magnanimous to us. This behavior you have never experienced in your entire life. And therefore, your outburst is not reasonable and logical. There is something beyond us. There is something beyond us. It is basically desired by some other force. Therefore, I choose to go to the forest." He cannot openly reveal, right? Just imagine Lord Ram did not reveal the purpose of why he wants to go to the forest to kill Ravan, because that's how he came down to this world. Yada yada dharmasya glani. But he cannot reveal that to Lakshmana. Even though he cannot reveal to Lakshman, but is bringing this profound concept through the mouth of Lakshman. What is it? Purushartha. So Lord Ram is presenting unknown Daiva. Lakshman is presenting known Purushartha. This is injustice which has happened against my brother, and I need to take action. And Lord Ram is saying, "No, no, this has never experienced by us. There is some other reason for this, my dear brother. Let us not resist. Let us go. Something else will be revealing to us." So it is not that Lord Ram is trying to undo what Lakshman is saying. If you study both of their arguments, it becomes very clear. This is the way how Valmiki Maharshi proceeds in narrating the Ramayana, harmonizing Purushartha visible, logical, Pratyaksha Praman, and adding the flavor of invisible, unknown, abstract, Daiva. ये तो ऐसा ही होगा, ऐसा ही होना चाहिए, कुछ तो इसके पीछे कारण है. There is something, some reason is there which he cannot reveal. And when they came to the forest, right, after coming to the forest, another interesting point is when all the great citizens of Ayodhya, imagine all the citizens of Ayodhya are extremely hurt. The entire Ayodhya appeared to be not a dense forest, a dried forest. There was no greenery, there was no prosperity, because everyone was crying, everyone was in great pain. And when Bharat came back, when he was entering into Ayodhya, he saw the entire deities in the temple were also crying, the Devatas temples. When he came, when he got to know what has happened, he decided this will not happen. This cannot happen. He did not accept that as his destiny. He said no. He put that efforts. And he came to Chitrakud mountains. And the discussion between Lord Ram and Bharat is one of the most profound discussion. Not only it centered around devotion, centered around emotion, centered around mellows, it is also centered around profound life theories. After discussing, eventually Bharat was not able to convince Lord Ramachandra to go back. Lord Ramachandra convinced Bharat to go back. He gave his paduka, because Bharat said, I cannot rule. I have to be representative. I have to represent you. So I need something of yours. So he collected the paduka also. He collected the paduka, placed the paduka on the throne. He went to Nandigram and he ruled on behalf of Lord Ram's paduka. Right? But when Lord Ram was in our Chitrakoot, after all this army went back to Ayodhya, now imagine in the Valmiki's Ramayan, unlike Tulsidas' Ramayan, in Tulsi's Ramayan, or if you go to north, if you go to Chitrakoot, if you ask them how many years Lord Ram stayed in Chitrakoot, many will say that Lord Ram stayed in Chitrakoot for 10 years, because the Chitrakoot Vasis, just like the Brajvasis, do not want to hear that Krishna left Vrindavan. Right? Krishna stayed in Vrindavan in his bhava form. Right? The Krishna one who went out of Vrindavan was not the Braj Krishna, but he was a Mathura Krishna. Because you don't want to let Krishna go. That is the spirit, that is the mood. But Valmiki's Ramayana, same thing, where in Tulsi Manas or the followers of Ram's devotees in Chitrakoot, they will always say stayed for 10 years. But if you read Valmiki's Ramayana, you will understand the beauty, the sensitivity, the power of respecting the nature. Because when Lord Ram came, he was private. He was there, Sita Maya was there, and Lakshman was there. Not many people knew about this other than the Ayodhya Vasi. It was slowly spreading all over. When the entire army came of Bharat, they stayed there. They tried to convince Lord Ram, but they couldn't convince. They all went back. And slowly, some of the sages were not coming to meet our Lord Ram. And eventually Ram thought, why they are not coming? Did I do any offense to them? So then he approached the sages. The sages said, my dear Lord Ram, we cannot stay anymore here, because your arrival has caused lot of alertness among the Rakshasas. Now they're harassing our places. They're coming here, and it is not very safe and secure for us to stay here. Such a big army also had come. We want to move away from this place. Please do not feel otherwise. Lord Ramachandra, how can he stop the sage's desire? So they were moving out of that place. And then Lord Ram came to Sita Maya and Lakshman. He said, you know what? He said, we should not stay in this place anymore. Why we should not stay in this place anymore? Because this place reminds me of all my family members coming here. And the pain of they being here is very, very difficult for me to handle. So I don't want to suffer the separation of the entire family from Ayodhya. So therefore, let us move to the next place, Valmiki Ramayana. And the third very profound reason Lord Ram gave. Imagine when in a place like a small, nice forest, it requires less human inhabitation. And suddenly entire army comes there. What does it do? It destroys the forest. The forest was trampled by a large number of human beings, horses, elephants, right? So environmentally it was not friendly. So if the entire human population moves away from there, the forest will regrow. Imagine in the bhakti spirit, in the political spirit, Ram is supposed to go to Ayodhya. In all this consideration, what we forget the value of the forest only. But Valmiki Maharshi brings these nuances also. Just like in the Mahabharata also, Vyasadeva brings it out. Pandavas did not stay in one forest. They would go from one forest to other forest because they had 60,000 students with them. And because Pandavas went to the forest, but they did not stop hunting because they are Kshatriyas. Right? Vyasadeva told them. And one time the animals then came and told them, my dear Pandavas, you are killing animals. If you continue to stay here, we will be exhausted in this forest. So please, can you move out of this place? The Pandavas respected the needs of the animals, moved to another forest. This is the profound presentation of Valmiki Maharshi. Sometimes our devotional sentiments can tamper with an important Siddhantic principle. Right? Oh, he stayed for so many years. Good for my personal feeling. But by talking about my personal feeling, I am disturbing the feeling of Lord Ram, of feeling separation from the Ayodhya Vasis in Chitrakoot. He is feeling I am responsible for making the sages go away. And the thirdly, the most important part is I am also allowing the the in the forest to be destroyed. So I need to move out of this place. Therefore, when you go to Chitrakoot, do not debate with those devotees, because for their devotion, who are privately practicing their devotion, to feel that we are here, Lord Ram is here, he stayed in Chitrakoot, forever he stays in Chitrakoot, is good for them. But when we study Valmiki's Ramayana, what does Valmiki's Ramayana say? Valmiki's Ramayana is basically so beautifully explaining that this is also the need of Lord Ramachandra. Another interesting story. There are many scholars. They cannot take the story of Lord Ram sending Mother Sita to Vanvas. I was just listening to very nice scholars who have dedicated their life in spreading the greatness of Bharatiya Vichardhara, the scriptures of Sanatan Dharma, just trying to understand where do they come from. And they very strongly giving many reasons to prove that how the Uthara Ramayan is not compiled by Valmiki Maharshi, it is Prakshipta. Prakshipta means there is an extrapolation, it came eventually afterwards. Otherwise, how is it possible that Lord Ram would chase away or send his wife to the forest? Right? And many reasons they give. But one of the strongest reason, I don't disagree that many books have lot of prakshipta verses coming, where they do not fit the Siddhanta. They may not sit rightly to the spirit of Valmiki's Maharshi's Ramayana. But in regards to the sending of Mother Sita to the forest, whatever commentaries I have read, the commentaries coming from Sri Sampradaya, commentaries coming from the Madhva Sampradaya, the Mahabharat Tatparya Nirnaya, and Srimad Bhagavatam 9 canto, Shukadev Goswami reciting to Parikshit Maharaj, saying that how the Ayodhya Vasis, not one ordinary dhobi, right, not a washerman, rather many people in Ayodhya were speaking about this. Is there in the Bhagavatam also? Hmm? But one of the most important part of Valmiki's Ramayana, which gives the hint, again as I said, this is my personal opinion, and many Vaishnava scholars also from the north, they don't accept Uthara Ramayan for whatever reason. Right? We don't want to prove that we are right, they are wrong. At the same time, I don't want to accept what they are saying completely right, because there is a spirit of Ramayana which is trying to prove something very tangible. And one of the most important part, when you start reading the Valmiki's Ramayana, the Balakanda, right, Valmiki Maharshi compiled his entire Ramayana. And he gave that Ramayana, every time he would compile, the great Bharadraj Rishi would do basically remember those verses. And Valmiki Maharshi kept on compiling, Bharadraj Rishi kept on remembering that. And as he was doing, and he asked how many verses, oh, it's 24th, oh my God, so big, how is it possible to make everybody listen? So the sages in Valmiki's ashram, they chose Lava and Kusha. Okay, one may say Lava Kusha, why not? They could have been in the forest, learning from their guru in the Gurukul's ashram. That is possible. One can argue, one can accept that argument. But they recited the Valmiki's Ramayana. They did learn it so beautifully. And one day, when these two brothers, Lava and Kusha, they were going around like Sankirtan, where people go around chanting the names of Krishna, chanting the names of Ram. Similarly, these two brothers were residing on the streets of Ayodhya, the beautiful Ramayana. And the recitation of Ramayana was heard by Lord Ram himself. He came down looking for these two young lads reciting the great poetry. They are chanting with proper meters. There was devotion in their heart. And they were artistic in presentation. Their voice was very sweet. Right? So when they were reciting this Ramayana so beautifully, it attracted the attention of Lord Ram. Lord Ram came out, he looked at these two children. If the children were in Gurukul and they've come back, it may take 5 minutes for Ram to recognize. It may take 10 minutes for Sri Ram to recognize. It may take 15 minutes for Ram to recognize. How is it possible that Lord Ram cannot recognize his two sons after their speaking, reciting, right? The Valmiki's Ramayana explains the Laukush did not know it was their father. And Lord Ramachandra did not know they were his sons. And therefore he conjectures, he tells Lakshman, hey Lakshman, they look like Muni Kumar, but there is some prabhava, There is some prabhav of Raja Darpa. They have that royalty. They are Rishi Kumars, but they know music very well. Let us hear from them attentively. Right? So, therefore, all the brothers, and eventually maybe others also, all the brothers and others, they're reciting the Valmiki's Ramayana, and that is how Valmiki Maharshi begins the Balakanda, where Narad Muni has approached him and then he's asking that question, hey dear Narad Muni, who is there in this world who is full of these qualities? Right? So when Lord Ram hears the Ramayana, he is hearing the Ramayana. But Lavakusha does not know they are speaking about that very Ram, the very Ramayana, which they learned from their Guru. And another very interesting part, Valmiki Maharshi, you know, I always believe in defending the Brahminical culture. Right? Whenever there is a battle, like nowadays, recently, yesterday, one nasty, he has the perversion of all Rakshasas, but he has the capacity of presentation very nicely. बोलने की क्षमता अच्छी है, लिखने की क्षमता अच्छी है, लेकिन लिखता बहुत गंदा है. Right? And this man, he was to be a belief officer in some multinational company, full of arrogance. Right? I will not take his name because he's studying Valmiki Ramayana. I don't fear him, but we don't want to take his name. He's trying to present, he's trying to see mundanity in everything. Oh, Lord Chaitanya drowned in the ocean. Brahmanas did this. Tukaram Maharaj was basically said that he went to Vaikunta. He said all the mysterious story has some twist in it. Who is responsible? What is his nature to see ordinariness in divinity? What does Ramayana teach us? Tulsi's Ramayana, more so. Valmiki's Ramayana, little hidden. It shows the great avatara, how he acted as a great human being, that we will discuss tomorrow. Lord Rama is an avatar. So here he is trying to dismantle, making Brahmanas as the culprit, Brahmana community as a culprit. But when it comes to the invasion of the Abrahamic religion, they will say, oh, it is not about the religion, it is about some criminals. But when it comes to the Brahmanas, oh, it is the Brahmana culture itself, it should be uprooted. That is their idea. And sometimes some of the karmat, some not so educated, like I heard somebody asking this question to one famous Bhagavatkar, that मैं बिहार में कथा करता हूँ, राम कथा करता हूँ, भागवत कथा करता हूँ, मैं तो ब्राह्मण नहीं हूँ, कर सकता हूँ क्या? The question was raised. And this Bhagavatkar, very famous, again I will not name because he's doing good things, but somebody has to tell him. He gave the answer, नहीं नहीं ब्राह्मण के अलावा कथा नहीं करना चाहिए. How insensitive of himself. Already there is attack on the Brahmins, right? You are not being conscious about what the attack is happening, and secondly, you are not speaking what the scripture is saying. Because the sages were there, hundreds of sages were there in Valmiki's ashram, but they chose two Kshatriya Kumaras, love and kush, to recite the Ram Katha. Imagine, Bhishma Dev is the person who spoke Bhishma Stuti, which includes Vishnu Sahasranam. He was not even clean then. He was lying on the bed of arrows. He was not taking bath. The entire blood was dried up. There was no responding to the call of nature. उस समय उन्होंने भीष्म की स्तुति गाई. भक्ति महत्वपूर्ण है. Suta Goswami, who is not a Brahmana, recited the entire Bhagavatam to so many thousands of sages. Right? When it comes to reciting, glorifying God, there is no caste distinction. There could be a provision, the Shastras provide for a common sense provision where there should not be competition, there should be cooperation. There are certain Vedic rituals. One may be qualified to do that, but he may choose not to do, because let that be done by the Purohit. Like recently, when we were in Ujjain for Upanayan Samskar, the two Purohit, they came from Bengaluru. After the entire process was over, I'll come back to Ramayana, but because we need to discuss this also very significant part, you know. So these two very nicely performed the Upanayan Samskar. After performing the Upanayan Samskar, when the time came for to give them Dakshina, so one of this Brahman Purohit said, he speaks Kannada, he said, you know what, because we came from outside, we are not from Ujjain, and because we perform this yajna, we are not localites. And he quoted a scripture. He said, therefore, it becomes our responsibility to also treat one or two Brahmins from local Ujjain place, because we have taken away their seva. He said, to make our yajna complete, we should also honor the local people. That is the Shastric reference. How Shastras are extremely centric, they are so sensitive, catching all the perspective of life. Therefore, Katha can be done by anybody, no doubt. Certain technical yajnas, it is not done by anybody and everybody. There has to be a parampara. Right. So, these two brothers were reciting the Ram Katha, and Lord Ram did not know them. So this is the one of the major difference. Valmiki Maharshi, as I said, there could be lot of reason why one does not accept Uthara Ramayan, and these are people not from any ordinary background, they come from deep devotional background also. But whatever I have learned, heard from great teachers, the story of Sita's sending into the forest is one of the significant part of Valmiki's Ramayana, and it makes Valmiki's Ramayana because here Lord Ram has come as the king, and because he is the king, even though he is Lord Vishnu himself, it brings out the concept of helplessness. The Prakriti, the material world, gives rise to concept of helplessness, even though it may not be right, you are not supposed to do, but because of the circumstantial situation, you are forced to do this. Ramchandra Bhagwan knew it is injustice towards Mother Sita to send her to the forest, but the situation was so designed, the entire Ayodhya Vasis, and Mother Sita was pregnant also, because this Balkanda story proves that Ram had not seen his sons. Right, that is there in the Valmiki's Ramayana. Right. So the when Mother Sita went to the forest, the king has the responsibility of sacrificing everything for his citizen. The indication is there in the Valmiki Ramayana itself. What is that indication? One day Sita Ram were sitting, they're enjoying the beautiful forest of uh, the Dandakaranya forest. They were traveling from place to place. They were sitting at one place, and Sita Devi wanted to be exclusive to Lord Ram, and she wanted to hear that from Lord Ram, that I am the exclusive, and there is no greater affection for Lord Ram other than Sita Devi. And therefore she asked this question, and Ram was giving her all affection, love. They were like private time for them. He was not a king, he was just exclusive husband to Sita Devi, and she was his exclusive wife. As they were discussing, right, because one poet, he explains why did Lord Ram go to the forest. Now this is Kavya, you know, the Kavya says because Lord Ram went to the forest because he knew that Sita Devi have to deal with three mother-in-laws, and plus there were more mother-in-laws caused by marrying by Dashrath Maharaj during emergency of Parshuram story. We might touch upon it, right? So he said, "Arey, this is too much for my wife." So he got an excuse to go to the forest, have a good time with Mother Sita, without any interference of any of these people. They're sitting and talking, and Sita Devi asked this question to Lord Ram about her, his devotion to her. And Lord Ram gave an answer, satisfying Sita Devi and going beyond also. He said, "My dear Sita Devi, when I hear the pain of my people, and wherever they are, from whichever part of the world, once they give that cry to me, asking my shelter, then for helping them, I am willing to give every family member of mine." तो यहां राजा बात कर रहा है, राजा के लिए अ किंग is a maharaj. Why is he maharaj? Is a maharaj because for him the priority is not his family. Anybody wants to be part of king's family, they should be willing to live in a forest also. They may live in the palace, but they might live in the forest also. An ordinary businessman, however poor he becomes, he doesn't go to the forest. If he has a big bungalow, he may come back to 3 bedroom house. If not 3 bedroom house, 1 bedroom house. He may not eat lavishly, but he will eat as much as he needs. His life is not creating such a disruption. But imagine a king, right, living in the palace has to live in the forest also sometime. Hundreds of stories are there. Two major stories, the Pandavas and Lord Ramchandra himself. And Ram spoke this to Mother Sita. So Valmiki Maharshi does not hesitate presenting this. Shukdev Goswami doesn't hesitate to present this. The great teachers do not hesitate to present this, but some feel this is too cruel. It cannot be there in the Uttara Ramayan. Yes, we agree the compilation, the style of Uttara Ramayan may not match as it is there in the Valmiki's main Ramayan, but still to outrightly deny the story of Sita's going to the Valmiki Maharshi, it simply minimizes the very purpose of Lord Ram coming as a human being. Why did he come as a human being? He came as a human being to show how high one can experience one's potential. कितने महान आप बन सकते हो, कितना ऊंचा जा सकते हो, how high you can go. And as an Adarsha leader, right, Ramayana is all about practicing Maryada. We will discuss that tomorrow. That limitation, that Maryada, that boundaries. When you put a boundary as a leader, you have so many helpless situations, right? With great tears in his eyes, he had to send Mother Sita to the forest. And when Sita Maya got to know about it, she was mortified. She was pained. She was willing to lay down her life. But she realized she was pregnant. As a wife, she suffered. But as a queen, when we read that part of the Valmiki's Ramayana, then you realize it cannot be prakshipta. It cannot be extrapolation. It has to be that same spirit of Valmiki's Ramayana, where Mother Sita told Lakshman, tell Raghav not to be angry with the citizens of Ayodhya. I stand by his decision. And she stood by the decision of Lord Ram in that forest, surrounded by great women sages also. She was placed in the women's quarter. She raised her children with what a confidence, where they are surrounded by so many great Brahmins, but all these Brahmanas had the magnanimity to choose love and kush to speak the great Valmiki's Ramayana, which stands apart from every other compilation. You know, and when it stands, everyone respects Valmiki's Ramayana. So whatever we read, whichever book we read, whatever compilation we read, if the Siddhanta, the spirit of that Valmiki Ramayana is missing, very respectfully, keep it aside and come back to the Siddhanta of Valmiki's Ramayana, which is based upon the reality of the Prakriti, the reality of the universe. It is based upon Dharma, Rita, and Satya. Lord Ram followed Dharma, he followed Rita, and followed Satya. And that is how Valmiki Maharshi very subtly compiles this beautiful book and makes it eternal. And as Brahmaji gave the benediction, as long as the creation is there, Ram Katha will be there. And he also gave the benediction to Hanumanji. Everyone went back to the spiritual realm except Hanumanji. He gave the benediction to Hanumanji. Wherever Ram Katha is going on, whichever language, Lord Hanumanji will be there listening, right? That beautiful, the story of Valmiki's Ramayana. Therefore, Valmiki stands out as Adi Kavi. There is no greater Kavi. All the Kavis are the followers of Valmiki Maharshi. If their Siddhanta, if their Rasa, if their Vichara and their yogic vision follows that path, then certainly they will have the vision of Ram and Ram Katha. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? We have 10 minutes to discuss 2-3 questions.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Beautifully explained the spirit of Ramayana as expressed by Valmiki Maharishi. We encourage you to ask questions. You can raise your hand on Zoom or you can post your question in the chat box. In the meanwhile, Prabhuji, you said that the spirit is about taking responsibility, doing your purshat, and that integrates with the grace of God. So, how do we understand the grace of God?
Yeah, there are 2-3 questions. One question is, uh, how can you understand? That's what we were discussing about. Lord Krishna was worried to Arjuna, couldn't sleep. Lord Krishna as a child killed so many demons and his expansion create universes just by breathing. Why is this such situation a difficult task for the great Lord? Krishna did miss the sleep for the entire night. Again, we will discuss this concept of avatara and manusha. That is the discussion of tomorrow. Please attend tomorrow's talk also on this. And somebody asked this question about Lord Ram when the Bharata's army came to the place in the forest about eating meat. Valmiki's Ramayana explains. I don't remember what the Tulsi Ramayan talks about. When Bharata's army came to Chitrakoot, on the way to Chitrakoot, they met Bharadraj Maharshi, and Bharadraj Maharshi, there are many people in his army, Bharata's army, who are non-vegetarians. And Valmiki Maharshi has the courage to write about, he fed them the deer's meat, rabbit's meat, and peacock's meat. If you're a very staunch vegetarian, have the concept of oh, everything was pure vegetarian, you might get shocked. And therefore, many Puritarian people have avoided this part of the Ramayana to discuss also. But if you study any of our scriptures, you know, the class of people who ate meat, they were also existing. And it was not the concept of like there is this socialist and a leftist ideologist, they have this concept that vegetarian is meant for the elitist. The vegetarian is meant for the higher caste only. And when you become a vegetarian, consciously, unconsciously, you are slandering the lower class and non-vegetarians. They have to create some stupid ideas like Marich and Shurpanaka and Mantara. If you study Bharat, in Bihar, in Bengal, in Odisha, right? Not all Brahmins, but higher caste Brahmins also traditionally, not because of modernity, traditionally they consume meat. When it started, how it started, the explanation is not there, but it is there. If you read in the Mahabharata also, there are some classes of Brahmins, they consumed. It is there. And seeing this, some people say, oh, just say everybody is to eat. So this whole concept of vegetarian is new thing. By seeing one or two instances, they want to conclude. Similarly, those vegetarians who are violently vegetarians, condemning everything about non-vegetarian, is also as non-vegetarian as eating non-vegetarian only. Therefore, reading the Shastra in their own context, how Bharadraj Rishi, rather than preaching them to be vegetarian, now he provided. And again, it is not question of elitist. If you go to many parts of Bharat, I remember seeing one very old video in 1920 of the 1920s video of some Britishers were shooting the fisherman colony in Mumbai, and he found many fishermen being vegetarians even though selling fish. If you read in the Mahabharata, that Dharma Vyada would sell meat, but he never ate meat. If you go to many parts of tribal villages also, there are many vegetarians and they are not necessarily upper class. The concept of vegetarianism has nothing to do with only upper caste. From other communities also did not consume. If you go to Karnataka, there is a community called as Linga. They come from all kinds of caste and they are pure vegetarians. So therefore, one of the greatest myth presented by so-called followers of, the myth writers, so they will present, oh, this is how it is. They want to create a battle between those who are circumstantial non-vegetarians and conscious vegetarians. Lord Chaitanya in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he was in that water in ecstasy, right, that fisherman who would recite the Narsinga mantra, that means he knew Lord Chaitanya. He was chanting the Vishnu mantra, Narsing mantra, but he was doing his profession of catching fish also. Not to make big money, but that was his traditional profession, right? He must have given up at some point of time. So therefore, creating this battle of vegetarian and non-vegetarian, becoming violently supporters of vegetarian, of course, it's an evolving process. Eventually, one can avoid all kinds of violence in regards to their food is desirable. But if somebody has been doing that since ages, suddenly asking them that we will not provide anything to you is not great Atiti Satkar. And Bharadraj Maharshi in Valmiki's Ramayana, the great Valmiki Maharshi himself, being such a pure soul, you can imagine he would only drink prana, what to speak of food. इतने शाकाहारी थे, वो केवल प्राण को ग्रहण करते थे. He doesn't have any hesitation to write that he, Bharadraj Maharshi, provided this meat. There is nothing to be bewildered. It accepts the integration of human existence, people coming from different consciousness.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this very evolved understanding. I would request Rajat ji to please unmute yourself and ask your question.
I already answered these questions from Valmiki Ramayan only, and the question of eating, and I
Kishori,
think
uh,
we'll stop here and take more things tomorrow. And tomorrow's topic is Lord Ram, Avatar, and Manushya, the combination. Thank you for your attention. Hare Krishna.
thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.